welcome everybody back on this afternoon session. This normally called the graveyard session because people, when you're teaching, students really fall asleep in front of you. So I hope we're all not too full so that we will fall asleep. We had a very interesting morning session and panel session. So we are also welcoming presenters with very interesting topics and papers. So without really wasting much time, Dr. Mbanza is going to present on effectiveness of pedagogical interface agents in enhancing adult computer literacy. Dr. Mbanza, over to you, and please start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm Dr. Mbanza. I'm from the Department of IT at the Central University of Technology, Free State. Yeah, I'm going to present on my research which I'm doing. So let me basically share the screen, then I can start presenting.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess you assume that you can see the screen. So as I say, I'm Dr. Mbanza from the Department of Information Technology at the Central University of Technology, Free State in Bloemfontein, South Africa. So those are basically my contact details. The title for the paper which I'm going to present is the effectiveness of pedagogical interface agent in enhancing adult computer literacy training. Okay, so this is basically the agenda, the different points which I'm going to discuss. For the sake of time, since we have limited time, everyone can see. I'm not really going to go in detail for that. Okay, so let me start here. So we are living in a digital, technologically oriented era. These days, everyone is talking about the fourth industrial revolution and all those things. So as a result of this technological, most of the activity, regardless which field you are in, it requires you to have some computer skills. At the same time, if we check in the developing country, there's some kind of problem. Okay, so in terms of adults, because the study here focus more on adults, so we can see that there are still adults who lack those computer skills. Because they lack these computer skills, that will make it difficult for them, obviously, to enjoy the benefit of this technologically oriented era. So because they are part of our community, we need to find a way to assist them so they can also benefit for this. You know, everyone is talking about the revolution, technological revolution. As they are part of the community, they also need to be integrated into the community. So to do that, of course, we need to give them some training. So we need to think of innovative way of doing this training. Okay, so why do we have to make it innovative? Basically, because we need to ease those computer training for them, especially the adult population, as I said, because they still have challenge, technological challenge. So if we enhance it, of course, it's going to create interest for them. It's going to improve their computer literacy training experience. If we see that is fine, we can, of course, find a way to reach more people who are facing the same dilemma of technological challenge. So there are different ways of doing this, but one of the way which you can use is to use the pedagogical interface agent. So this is basically a definition of a pedagogical interface agent. So it's a pedagogical interface agent, a piece of educational software with human characteristics presented on the computer screen that are able to guide the user in a socially engaging manner through a multimedia learning environment. So there are different terms which have been used to refer to the same thing. So some call it pedagogical agent. These are just few of them. Some call it animated pedagogical agent, instructional agent, lifelike characters, computerized agent. So those are the various terms which people sometimes use, but most of the time they basically refer to the same thing. Okay, so because my focus here is on the computer field or in the computer training, there are already systems which exist. If you are talking about the pedagogical interface agent, using the pedagogical interface agent, especially in the field of computer teaching, those are just few of those examples. So you can see the first one is basically a computer virus educational. So it's educate people about different issues with the computer viruses. Sorry. And this auto tutor, so basically this one, it gives some basic introduction about the networks and other issues. So the last one which I put here is the smart eggs. So smart eggs is basically a kind of a pedagogical agent which teach students SQL language. So as I said, they are on their system which exists, what means there have been previous studies which have been done in this field. Okay, so the result of those previous studies have proven that the use of pedagogical interface agent, so basically it can increase the learner motivation, satisfaction, and enjoyment. Also, it can enhance the comfort in a learning environment. It can also produce greater learning gains compared to the traditional way or the traditional program. But the unfortunate part is most of these studies, they focus on the childhood to the undergraduate and college age population. So that's the population where most of these previous studies have concentrated. So as a result of that, there are still open issues that need to be researched upon. So basically the use of pedagogical interface agent into the adult learning environment, there's little which is known about that. So that will be basically the focus of these studies, as I said earlier on. Okay, so the research objectives, it was basically to assess the effectiveness of pedagogical interface agents in enhancing computer literacy training. Precisely, the training will focus on the word processing training. So, and then our target group, it was basically the group of, as I said earlier on, technological challenge adults. Then in terms of methodology, the participant, it was a group of previously disadvantaged adults from the Mangaung University of the Free State Community Program. That is in a location here called, in a location in Bloemfontein. So it's based in Bloemfontein in South Africa. So those type of adults, or our target adults, it was basically those adults who have limited formal education. So also they were less familiar with technologies. In terms of data collection, so we use 3 principal data collection methods. So the first one, it was a simulated Microsoft Office system. We call it SMOS. So that basically it's a system which was developed to facilitate the computer training, as I said earlier on. So that system incorporates 10 kind of different agents. This is a simulation, a simulated program, a desktop simulated program. So as I say, we call it SMOS, so it incorporates 10 different type of agents. Okay, so we also did some user testing. So we look for the target population, as I said earlier on. So basically people who have limited formal education, who are also less familiar with technology. So in part of the user testing, so basically we train them with the system to show them how the system works. And then we give them some tasks to perform by themselves to see if it's gonna be easier for them. So that also was collected by means of questionnaires. So there was a pre and post questionnaires. The pre basically it was for the purpose of streaming the participant to make sure that they are really the type of participant which we created the system for. So the post-test questionnaire was after we given them some task to perform as part of the usability testing. After that, we gave them some questionnaires whereby we asked them to give us the impression about the system which they use. Okay, as I said, the system consists of 10 different type of agents. So these are the different agents. So the agent one, it was a female text agent. So the second one, it was the male text agent. And then there was a female text and audio. So, and then the male text and audio, the female cartoon. So the male cartoon, the female cartoon dogs, the male cartoon dogs, the female realistic dog, and then the male realistic dog.
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, so this is basically the environment for the CMOS. So as you can see there, so because of time, I'm not going to go too much into detail. So the user can choose the type of help which you want or the type of topic which you want to learn about, and then the agent is going to appear there. Of course, you also need to choose the agent. The agent is going to appear there, and then it can play to follow the instruction how to do that specific task. Okay, so this is an example of a participant interacting with a realistic dog agent. Okay, so in terms of data analysis, so we had 72 participants, so 48% were male and then 52 were female. So the age basically as it's there, because of time, I'm not going to go into details. Okay, so these are, as I said earlier on, so we gave them a post-test questionnaire. So these are the impressions based on the question which we asked them about the hint which the agent gave them to accomplish the task. So the finding basically, so the participant, basically most of them or all of them, they acknowledge that the hint which the agent gave them greatly assisted them to achieve what they were trying to do. Some of those basically assisted them to achieve the following, so they can quickly learn how to perform a particular task. They can recall the different steps involved for a particular task, so they can complete the task quicker, so they can also identify the mistakes when performing a task. Okay, so in conclusion, so the result of the study, indeed, it has shown that the pedagogical agent, they've got potential in enhancing computer training. So as I said earlier on, the training focus on word processing. So it's also training experience for the technological challenge adult. So, but the study, as usually, it has some limitation, or it had some limitation. So based on those limitations, we suggested some solutions or some further research. Okay, so the first one, it was, as I said, so the study participant, basically all of them, they could speak and understand English. So because the pedagogical agent here, they're basically providing instruction in English. So in further study, we're looking at the possibility of using other South African local language. So that's we've already done. So I have a student who's working on that. So we also send a paper for publication on that one. Okay, so the second limitation, it's basically those adults, as I said earlier on. So the system itself, it included simple functionality. So that's what we judged it was necessary for the purpose of the studies. So we should look at the possibility of adding more advanced feature that could, in the more advanced features instead of just simple tasks as they perform. Because so the participant also, they work on a simple task. So we also going to look at the possibility of including more complex tasks. Yeah, that's basically the end of the presentation. So if you have any question, please.
Good afternoon, colleagues. And this afternoon, my presentation will be a preview of my paper entitled Critical Reflection on Teaching and Assessment Practices in a Higher Education Setting in Mauritius during the COVID-19 lockdown. I am a lecturer in the Department of Agricultural and Food Science at the Faculty of Agriculture, the University of Mauritius. The picture shows a building of the Faculty of Agriculture where my office is located. However, today I am delivering the presentation from home. According to the United Nations, COVID-19 has created the largest global educational disruption. The world needs resilient education systems to save intellectual life and prevent a lost generation. Human and digital connectivity are at the heart of resilient education systems. Digitally competent educators are able to make creative, sensible, and prudent use of digital technology to adapt their teaching methods to online learning for better outcomes. In a resilient education system, inclusive pedagogy is the driving force. Quality education is delivered in supportive and caring environments for academic success. With COVID-19, we have seen that the digital divide is a threat to building resilient education systems. On the other hand, we have witnessed that access to digital technology has enabled emergency shifts to remote teaching for educational survival. However, in these pressing circumstances, pedagogical considerations might not have been optimal. In Mauritius, the COVID-19 lockdown started in March and ended in May. I will share my educational story during forced transition from on-campus to online course delivery to undergraduate students of the University of Mauritius, the digital natives, who fortunately had access to digital technology and internet connectivity. The timeframe for this reflective study is the COVID-19 lockdown and post-lockdown period. The approach relates to participatory and qualitative research. I critically reflected on my teaching and assessment practices. I am a digital immigrant in the sense that I was born before the digital age and I acquired digital literacy through life. I had to leave the shore to teach the digital natives. The only way to stay afloat was the digital lifeline. In this context, my paper aims at answering the following research question. Has the deployment of digital tools in a sanitary crisis situation embedded pedagogical paradigms and achieved functional improvement in teaching methods? To answer the research question, I will make use of the SMART model put forward by Puente Dura in 2006. The first column presents different levels of the model. The second column gives examples of application of digital tools which are explored during COVID-19. The third column highlights the underlying pedagogical characteristics. Initially, at the beginning of the lockdown, I used digital tools to maintain a human connection with students for teaching and assessment continuity. This relates to the lowest level of the SMART model, Technology is used as a direct tool substitute with no functional change. As I was getting used to the technology and engaging more with students, I could embed authentic, collaborative, constructivist, and critical pedagogy. In my paper, I provide examples of case-based group assignments which address higher cognitive levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Online student team interviews, which I designed to assess individual contribution of students to group assignments, which replaced examinations, emerged as a method with potential to redefine teaching, learning, and assessment. I discovered that engaging in pedagogical conversations, authentic pedagogical conversations with students provides meaningful insights to inform practice. I was so happy to be able to establish real human connections in virtual learning environments. Now it is time for educational healing. Since September this year, several modules are offered on blended mode at the University of Mauritius. I am learning to make augmented and creative use of digital technology with effective pedagogy. Interactive digital tools are being integrated in online lectures to boost student engagement. Online interview of student teams are being further explored as formative assessment method to promote dialogue learning. Authentic, critical, and participatory pedagogy are being embedded in face-to-face and online conversations with students. By participatory pedagogy, I mean, for example, immersing in mobile technology with the digital natives in a flipped classroom setup to search for answers with them.
Yes,
this is a teaching method. Yes, thank you. This is a teaching method which I started to implement 2 weeks ago. It is amazing to see the students read, think, discuss, write the answers while I engage in this learning process with them. Thus, creative use of digital tools is vital to deliver quality education for all, enhance higher education resilience, foster intellectual growth and educational revival, to contribute to attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Before ending the presentation, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to the Digital 2020 International Conference Chair, Organizing and Review Committees. Without this event, my presentation and my work wouldn't have been possible. Special thoughts to the students of the Faculty of Agriculture. I also wish to thank the University of Mauritius. I have included a list of references for further reading and reflection. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Chair, for the introduction. Can I just ask you, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the morning sessions, which were very interesting. Today, this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the factors that influence students' choice of university, and it is a study which was conducted by one of my co-authors here, Dr. Carloni. It was part of her doctorate in business administration, and Professor Margaret Cullen and myself were the promoters for this study. So this afternoon, I'll be looking at the following things in this presentation. I'll provide some background to the University of Choice research, which is conducted internationally. I will look at some factors which students, specifically national and international students, use to make decisions about the University of Choice. I'll define some problems, research objectives, and specifically because this study was done before COVID pandemic actually completed at the beginning of this year, I will be looking at some of the implications and the continuous research which we're now conducting internationally post-COVID on the factors that influence students' university of choice. I will then be presenting the methodology, discuss some results, and we will look at some conclusions and future recommendations. At the moment, if you come to our campus, you find a vast variety of students, or just before COVID, on the campus. We had a number of international students from America. We had students from Germany. We had even students from China. And then, because South Africa and the Nelson Mandela University is situated in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, we have a lot of students from Botswana, Zimbabwe, and also as far as Mauritius attending. What was very interesting on a visit a while ago to Australia was that we observed a number of international students at Australian universities, specifically from Indonesia and countries like Hong Kong and China, Singapore, etc. And we visited with a MBA group England last year, and we were at a number of universities where we found that the recruitment officers specifically have recruitment strategies to recruit students from China. And recently, last year, we were in Mauritius on a study tour and found a number of international universities operating in Mauritius. So internationalization is happening all over the world. And universities that we saw in England have different recruitment strategies for recruiting national students and specifically recruiting international students. And when you look at the benefits of internationalization for a university, of course, it's increased revenue. The diverse, as I said on our campus, the diverse population of students, exposure to different cultures, people with different backgrounds studying there, which is very good for the student population. And the students have access to internationalization to a diverse range of academics, local and international. And they have different exposure to research, which is done internationally. And a lot of students coming to study at our university, specifically trying to get a master's and a PhD qualification, try to remain in South Africa and for job opportunities that are available here. So if we look at the factors that influence a student's decision, we have to look at it from two viewpoints. We have to look at who influences their decisions and what factors do they consider for selecting a university. So if we look at the research which is done internationally, and this is one extract from an international study, we will see that part of society, family, friends, they influence their decisions to come and to select a specific university. Career advisors, teachers have also been found as important people in a student's life on making a decision where to study. However, when they want to then make the decision where to study, looking at the different options and the criteria for selecting a university, we find that things like factors like the university facilities, the staff, the research, and increasingly the university's reputation and rankings. Those are two very important factors which are now lately being considered. And one of the research studies which we have been conducted at our university is trying to develop a ranking framework for African universities. So university ranking and specifically the university reputation is very important. So what I'm going to look at as a research problem in the study was to look at who or what influences the students' university's choice of university, and then what factors do students consider very important when they select the university. We did the study pre-COVID, and the COVID epidemic has had a drastic effect on what has happened with our research study, and I will highlight that in a moment. So if we look at COVID and higher education, we'll see that this pandemic had a major impact on the higher education landscape. A lot of youth universities had a lot of uncertainties, and specifically with international students on our campus and on various campuses all over the world, we saw that the pandemic has caused a major upset in how things are done. From a personal perspective, I am teaching at the moment where students are sitting all over in Africa with limited internet access and data specifically, and it's caused a lot of problems for us to communicate with students, specifically in countries like Angola, Zimbabwe, etc. Then we also find that the mobility of students have changed. Specifically in South Africa, our borders have been closed. So the students which had to go home just before the pandemic, they are still sitting in countries outside South Africa, and they've not been able to come back onto campus, even though we have a 33% group of students on campus. What we also find that the universities had to change in their mode of delivery, and this has caused stress basically for the students and for the staff. And we had to move very fast to online and blended learning. So this study, we went and did a positivist research philosophy, and our approach was deductive. We had a survey which consisted out of 4 sections where we asked a number of questions and statements regarding the demographics of who are your parents and your family and who influenced your careers, your choice of university, and what factors did you use to choose a university. We did an online survey, captured it on Question Pro, and we had 2,909 responses in South Africa. We did snowball sampling, where we went to our international office and to the alumni of the university and sent them the URL link. And from there, we asked people to send that link to friends and colleagues who have qualified at a university in South Africa. So we had 2,909 responses, and part of the statistical analysis included exploratory factor analysis. So let me run through some of the results with you. As we can see, we had a fairly nice split between male and female. Our age range was fairly widespread, normal distribution. The disadvantage one is on the slide. You can see the country of origin. We only had 148 international students, although there were many more on our campus that completed the survey. These were students from America and specifically from Europe that were involved in the study. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, that the qualifications were very different. They had mostly degree and advanced degree and a fair amount of postgraduate students. And you could see that most of them were employed after completing their studies. So let's look at the results. So the first part is, where did these respondents get information and who influenced their decision? And the most important one that came out for us was recommendations from former students. So it's word of mouth. Word of mouth is most important, and the university's website, and then parents, relatives, and teachers. Those were the important people that influenced their decision to select the university. So those were the people that influenced their university of choice decision. The least important are highlighted in yellow below. That is basically the open day. That's where people could come onto campus. Social media, excluding the website. The website is not included here. And then adverts, that didn't work. So that was the results from that survey regarding who helped you in making your decision. The results of the factors which they chose to make a decision, we see that the quality of the academic programs and the academic side was one of the most important criteria of this group and in the study. They also, very high, number 4 there is the university's ranking and reputation, the technology, and then the reputation of the faculty. So reputation is a very important consideration here. Specifically in South Africa, what happens after you do your qualification? What is the job opportunity and job placement rate? And then, of course, cost of living. The tuition fees, and specifically the living expenses, those were important ones which came through here. On the bottom end of this, and there were many more factors, there were over 50 factors which we identified. We found that the relatives requirements, obtaining a visa to specifically a study visa, family traditions, those were factors which weren't considered important. So if we look at this, we can see that the recommendation from former students, the university's website, and the influence of parents and friends are very important in students influencing them to make a decision. And then the factors looking at choosing a university is the quality and the variety of the academic programs, the university's reputation and ranking, the use of technology at the university, and then the reputation of the faculty and tuition fees. Those were the important criteria which we found in the study. Looking at this, the Carloni produced a model for the university as one of the outputs from a doctorate study. And here we can see that campus visit, media, family, those were all influencing decisions, and you can see some sub-factors listed there. And on the right-hand side, you can see the factors considered when choosing a university with all the sub-factors over there. So those were the important ones and the delivery out of this research study. So some of the recommendations which we're making is when we did some t-test where we looked at the differences in responses between the national and international students, although the international students were a very small group, the fact that the local students had identified campus visits as important, people coming to their campuses around the world and recruiting there. That's what international students found very important. The website, what influence, what they could obtain, the data they could obtain from the website, and then family. So when you're looking at the marketing of universities for the marketing department, they have to focus on different recruitment and marketing strategies for different groups, nationally or internationally. So where does that leave us? So then COVID came. And we realized that this model needs some serious adjustment and we have to rethink it. So we have now launched a new study where we're now looking at a similar research, but we've now got universities involved in the USA, some partners which we're working with in Germany and also in South Africa. We've also just recently had contact with 2 British universities where we would like to also include in the study. And we're going to repeat the study and see what are the factors specifically after COVID, and how the marketing recruitment strategies of universities will have to change due to COVID. So this is ongoing research after that. So Chair, thank you very much, and I'm open for any questions.
So my research topic is critical analysis of purposeful integration of technology in education, a learner-centric approach for practical application. So why do we need technology? And why the need for effective technology in the educational ecosystem? Today, technology is everywhere, and it spans across all walks of life. So integrating technology in education is all about creating instructional environment that can facilitate active participation among students and also meet the specific and varying needs of students, thus facilitating into a collaborative problem-solving and critical thinking approach. The aim is to integrate the use of technological tools and pedagogical content in a unified manner so that it supports and extends the curriculum objective and engages students actively in meaningful learning. Students should be able to use technology actively, not just view technology-based content provided to them in a classroom environment. The objective of this study is to determine the different approaches to successful integration of technology in classroom, to identify factors that can help in purposeful integration of technology, to determine the effectiveness of the technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge framework, and to suggest practical ways of how technology could be integrated in education. There are many innovative and technological tools available today. To name a few of them, we have an online collaborative learning platform that is available for all students, and during this pandemic period, we have all been acquainted to it. Today, we are more focused on collaborative spaces rather than the traditional learning spaces. These are phasing out. We use high-tech smartboard, Jamboard, SmartPod, these just to change the ambience of the classroom. Mobile learning, e-learning, e-books have gained a lot of popularity these days. Among these, we also have augmented and virtual reality, the use of these tools, AR and VR, in classroom for immersive learning. With AR and VR, digital learning has been given new perspective. The use of these tools in classroom makes studies more interesting and immersive. AR can transform the classroom in several ways, such as pre-made content using AR apps, AR-enabled worksheets, AR walls, thus enticing students into their learning. We also have mixed reality, which is used today, where virtual objects are integrated into a responsive world, real world. Gamification and artificial intelligence are the technological tools which are gaining a lot of popularity. Merging gamification with simulation improve the learning effectiveness and motivation of students compared to the traditional teaching method. Adoption of virtual games and gaming technology has made it easy for students to indulge in difficult subjects, thus making the subject more simpler. Artificial intelligence is also starting to remodel the educational ecosystem. Today, we have AI-enabled tools like Gopee, a virtual learning assistant that offers great potential for tutoring. Bringing technology into classroom will change the whole learning experience and make the class lively and interactive. But how to integrate this technology and how to make it effective use in classroom, this is what this research paper is all about. One of the framework that has been used is the technological pedagogical content knowledge framework that we use together within the research. It is the technology integration framework that identifies 3 types of knowledge instructors need for successful integration. You need to have technology, the right technology. You need to have your pedagogical content, and also your content knowledge. Suppose you have the right technology, but you don't have the content, then there is no use of it. You need to have the right technological tools, you need to have your content, and you need to have the right approach to teach. In this research, the methodologies that has been used were based on both qualitative and quantitative. So classroom observation and interviews were used to identify and analyze how technology could be integrated during instructional time. A survey was also conducted to determine the challenges of integrating technology into education. We were also based on the literature research, which were from authorized web pages, e-documents from different institutions, and also published literatures in journals and textbooks. The target group for this research has been students, educators, lecturers, head of institution at both private and public institutions. The sampling techniques was very much diversified. We've used a small sampling group, that is 10 primary teachers and 10 heads of school that were interviewed. And also we had 15 lecturers and 5 heads of faculty that were questioned at tertiary level. The sampling techniques based on questionnaire, we had out of 100 questionnaires that were given to faculties, 70 of them were filled in correctly, 30 were left incomplete, resulting in rejection, and 150 questionnaires were given to students, out of which 130 were well received and fully filled, but 20 of them didn't reply. The questionnaire, the findings based on the questionnaire was as such. So 60% of the respondents stated that internet access is an important purpose for successful integration of technology. 50 of them say that they have difficulty on how to integrate the new trends in educational technology. That is AR, VR, gamification, AI. There is a little bit of difficulty, and also how to merge software with their pedagogical content. 70% of the respondents stated that investment in education technology is a must. And only 30% responded to remodeling of the classrooms, that it is not necessary that for purposeful integration of technology, we need to remodel our classroom. 60% of them replied to the right IT competency. Lecturers teaching need to have the right competency, right IT competency. And 50% stated that access to technological tools is very important, or else we would not be able to integrate them successfully in classroom. So analysis of the findings stated that based on the result of the survey, it can be determined that the following criteria, namely access to technological tools, having the right IT competency, investing in educational technology, and having a good internet connection is crucial for integrating technology in teaching. All these criteria correlate very much well with the TPAC framework. To conclude, the success of technology integration cannot only be based on the technological tools, but we also need to know how technology can be used effectively and how pedagogy can be transmitted from teacher to student to a learning environment that is dynamic, student-centered, creative, flexible, and innovative. So technology integration cannot be done abruptly. It is more of a phased approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Vusumuzi Maphosa from Lupane State University in Zimbabwe. I'm the director of the ICT department, and I'm presenting a paper, an evaluation of the acceptance of Moodle by the faculty at the rural university in Zimbabwe during the COVID-19 lockdown period. This paper was done by myself and my other 2 colleagues, Ms. Dlamini and Ms. Vanda. the outbreak of the COVID-19 led to the subsequent shutdown of educational institutions, and LSU was also included. This forced the university to move into the virtual learning environment, which was not popular in this side of the world. So the study looked at the acceptability of the sudden shift to ensure that there was continued learning. We also wanted to look at the challenges and opportunities that were faced in implementing this technology-based education in its entirety for a rural-based setting. What is our research problem? E-learning implementation is complex and has got many facets that must be considered. So this was an emergency response to quicken the adoption of Moodle by Lupane State University academics after the campus closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What is the aim of this paper? The purpose of this paper is to highlight how the faculty accepted this new norm through answering the following research questions. What are the significant limitations that hindered the use of Moodle by LSU staff during COVID-19 lockdown? Which top conditions facilitated the acceptance of Moodle during the lockdown by LSU faculty? Then I'm going to look at some literature. E-learning supports 21st century learning, which allows learners to co-create, to collaborate, and to be active participants in the learning process. Anderson and Groland 2009, they highlight that e-learning is cheaper and flexible and promises to increase access to education by marginalized communities. The use of e-learning tools, again, has been rising globally, as many of them are open source and are highly customizable. Globally, higher education institutions are adopting e-learning to address challenges related to inadequate physical facilities, timetabling issues, and resource constraints such as textbooks. According to our literature, some of the hindrances to e-learning adoption include limited access to ICT, the cost of data, lack of digital skills, lack of technical support, and lack of institutional culture to embrace e-learning. What makes e-learning implementation succeed? When there's improved access to the internet, if there are incentives for academic staff and support staff, and if there is support from management. This was by Mokofi 27 and others. Taras et al. 2015 also concluded that LMS success was also coined to or linked to digital skills increase and also increasing the confidence levels of academic staff. There's a study in Kenya which applied or adopted the unified theory of acceptance and use of technology and found that institutional policies and training of lecturers and support staff greatly influenced the adoption of an LMS. What was our theoretical framework? We adapted the AUT by Venkatesh and others for use in our research. This framework or this model has been refined over the years to improve the prediction of user acceptance of a new technology and has become one of the most dominant models. This model is also based on several models which were improved, like the theory of reasoned action, innovation and diffusion theory, the technology acceptance model, and the social cognitive theory, amongst others. So the unified theory of acceptance and use of technology has got two main constructs, the facilitating conditions and the limiting conditions. And in our adaptation, what were the facilitating conditions, management support, usability, and access? And what were the limiting conditions? Access to equipment, inadequate internet, lack of ICT support, traditional pedagogy, and lack of practical skills. So to support teaching and learning during COVID-19, we needed a tool that can support 21st century learning, where learning can take place from any time and from anywhere, where learning is self-paced, where learning allows learners to critically think and also support active learning by the learners. We adopted the quantitative research design, and we adapted the UT model to gather the views of faculty on Moodle acceptance during a pre-training. So this was an ex-ante study, which was a pre-implementation study. So we investigated the perception of faculty towards utilizing Moodle for teaching during the COVID-19 lockdown. We utilized the questionnaire, which was developed using the constructs adapted from that model, with 16 questions using a Likert scale, 1 representing strongly disagree and 4 representing strongly agree. We measured, we evaluated the experience in using e-learning technologies, access to devices, data, etc. We emailed the questionnaire to the prospective participants with a total of 200 members that we targeted to collect data from, who are part-time lecturers and full-time lecturers. And we received 114 usable responses. 67% of the participants were male and 37% were female. According to qualifications, 18.4% were PhD holders, while 81.6% were master's holders. The results show that 60 of the participants, which is 54%, had never taken an online course. 71% of the participants did not know these platforms. Only 16% knew about MOOCs, while 12.3% had taken a course. 77% agreed that they had adequate computer skills to support Moodle, while 22% needed ICT training. 81% of the participants were willing to spend at least 2 hours a week on Moodle. This shows the willingness to adopt Moodle during the lockdown. 78.9% had a theoretical knowledge of Moodle. Only 17.5% had created a few modules. So we used it. Hello?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, all right. What were the limiting conditions? Limited internet access, reliance on devices that were domiciled at the institution, lack of training. So these were the hindrances. Whereas the facilitating conditions were management support and provision of data during the training. What do we recommend is that the university should acquire adequate ICT infrastructure such as e-learning servers. Currently, the university is still developing an e-learning policy, and this must be one of the priority areas so that it aligns learning to a strategic plan. Zimbabwe is the most expensive data in the world, so the university should support staff and students by providing data. We also recommend the establishment of a Center for Educational Technology, which can coordinate ICT and pedagogical issues. Faculty staff also must be oriented to their new roles in this new norm. In conclusion, respondents accepted Moodle as a tool for remote learning during COVID-19. The barriers included internet access, devices, training, lack of institutional and national policies, and limited digital skills, and the cost of data. The academic staff were willing to be trained on Moodle usage. Further research could be conducted across many institutions to capture the views of the students. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, as a response to the COVID-19 threat, a graduate foreign language pedagogy course implemented at an Italian university and focusing on CLIL transitioned online soon after the first few face-to-face classes in early March 2020. Almost from one day to the next, the course switched from a face-to-face to an online format. As a result, students had to adjust to new online learning environments and approaches while coping with a worldwide crisis. When the course moved online, the instructor decided to modify some of its components to foster engagement and active learning. Working within the community of inquiry framework, the activities implemented online were thus targeted at promoting student active learning. In keeping with the community of inquiry framework, the instructor consistently scaffolded social presence online. In this respect, for example, at the beginning of each weekly live class, the instructor implemented digitally enhanced icebreaker activities. The instructor also provided extensive formative assessment during synchronous and asynchronous learning. As online pedagogy suggests, during synchronous online classes, which were held in Blackboard Collaborate, activities were organized in small chunks. At the beginning, digitally enhanced interactive activities were implemented, targeted at activating students' prior knowledge. Short instructor-delivered lectures followed. After being introduced to new subject-specific concepts through short lectures, students applied the newly presented concepts by engaging in digital interactive activities devised with open educational resources. Student-centered learning was thus consistently implemented through digitally enhanced activities from an open pedagogy perspective. Moving the course online entailed the instructor switching the focus from content to skills development in keeping with online pedagogical approaches. As the core component of emergency online teaching, the instructor implemented a collaborative learning experience targeted at enhancing students' clean materials design skills development. After a series of activities designed to help students learn individually how to use free digital tools to create various types of CLIL activities, learners carried out the final course assignment collaboratively. Students thus worked online in groups of 6 or 7 to create CLIL digitally enhanced interactive teaching units in English. This authentic assessment also worked as the course summative assessment. The effectiveness of emergency remote teaching implemented during the COVID-19 disruption requires investigation to plan better education in the post-pandemic context. The present study thus aims to investigate this pedagogical aspect. In particular, it aims to examine students' perceptions of the effectiveness of emergency remote teaching, especially in relation to the development of clear professional skills through digital collaborative learning. This addressed the following research question. To what extent did students perceive the effectiveness of the emergency remote teaching in general, and to professional skills development in particular within a community of inquiry framework? The cohort for the present study consisted of 20 Italian students attending a graduate foreign language pedagogy course at an Italian university. Descriptive research was carried out through a mixed methods approach. In particular, a semi-structured online questionnaire was administered to students at the end of the course, thereby providing the data for the study. The data investigated, which consist of students' perceptions, are not the result of a controlled experiment. The number of students involved in the study is too small to get conclusive results. Some interesting phenomena may, however, be identified and further investigated in future studies. Data show that most students felt that the delivery method of the online classes supported their learning to a very high degree. While engaged in emergency online learning, the majority of students felt comfortable. In particular, students felt relaxed, motivated, part of a learning community, and confident. The positive feelings that students experienced while engaged in online learning were likely to be enhanced by the instructor's social presence, which emerged as pivotal in general and especially meaningful during collaborative learning, and by the feeling of being part of a cohesive group where students felt safe. In this respect, students held that the instructor made them feel like real people whose feelings, opinions, and ideas mattered. The timely feedback provided was probably also instrumental in fostering the instructor's social presence. All students stressed, in fact, the effectiveness of the written audio and video feedback the instructor gave them while they were creating their clear lessons collaboratively. Furthermore, when asked to identify the main affordances of emergency online learning, students selected the opportunity to get more feedback from the instructor, the opportunity to carry out more interactive activities, feeling less intimidated when asking questions, the feeling of belonging to a learning community, more interaction with the instructor, more active learning, the chance to ask more questions, the possibility of engaging more fully in the co-construction of knowledge, and the feeling of having a closer bond with the instructor. In terms of skills, most students indicated as being especially useful the collaborative task requiring them to create a clear, digitally enhanced teaching unit in English. As part of collaborative learning, multiple ways of knowledge representation were encouraged, thereby fostering differentiation and personalization. In a follow-up question, most students described the experience as skills empowering, interactive, innovative, and motivating. Students' positive perceptions of the effectiveness of online collaborative learning were connected in particular to its skills development learning objective, whose accomplishment students described as highly scaffolded by the instructor's consistent formative assessment. In another follow-up question, students further identified collaborative learning targeted at the development of professional skills as an added value of the online learning experience. In particular, being engaged in collaborative, digitally driven skills development learning made students feel more motivated and involved in active learning, while promoting a sense of being members of a cohesive group. However, students would have probably appreciated being engaged even more in collaborative learning, since they highlighted little interaction with their peers as a negative aspect of online classes. In conclusion, students described devising a lesson plan and creating the relative clear digitally enhanced activities collaboratively as the strategy which best helped them develop the pedagogical skills the course targeted. In this respect, most students felt that they had developed the skills necessary to create effective, clear teaching materials effectively. The findings show that students perceived as effective both emergency remote teaching in general and online collaborative digitally driven skills development in particular. Students seem to have adapted rather well to emergency online learning, also thanks to the focus on collaborative skills development. Such collaboration was instrumental in making students feel even more part of a learning community, in keeping with the community of inquiry framework. Students' positive perceptions of collaborative, digitally driven skills development may also depend on the metacognitive component of this pedagogical practice, which helped learners realize, through the co-creation of clear digitally enhanced articles, the extent of their academic achievements, that is to say, how far they had accomplished the course learning outcomes. In this light, it is noteworthy that students also pinpointed the need to foster more peer-to-peer interaction in online classes. The peer-to-peer interaction dimension thus needs to be further enhanced while redesigning similar courses in a blended or fully online format for the next cohort of students. Thank you.